The Sermon at Benares. Gautama Buddha began life as a prince named Siddhartha Gautama in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, he returned home to marry a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as befitted royalty. At about the age of 25, the prince, heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world, while out hunting, chanced upon a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat down under a peepal tree, where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. Enlightened after 7 days, he renamed the tree the Bodhi tree, tree of wisdom, and began to teach and to share his new understandings. At that point, he became known as the Buddha, the awakened or the enlightened. The Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Benares, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. That sermon has been preserved and is given here. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Kissa Gautami had an only son, and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine, and the people said, "She has lost her senses. The boy is dead." At length, Kissa Gautami met a man who replied to her request, "I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can." And the girl said, "Pray tell me, sir, who is it?" And the man replied, "Go to Sakyamuni the Buddha." Kissa Gautami repaired to the Buddha and cried, "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." The Buddha answered, "I want a handful of mustard seed." And when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added, "The mustard seed must be taken from a house when no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend." Poor Kissa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, "Here is mustard seed, take it." But when she asked, "Did a son or daughter or father or mother die in your family?" they answered her, "Alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief." And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. Kissa Gautami became weary and hopeless and sat down at the wayside, watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. At last, the darkness of the night reigned everywhere, and she considered the fate of men, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. And she thought to herself, "How selfish am I in my grief! Death is common to all, yet in this valley of desolation there is a path that leads him to immortality who has surrendered all selfishness." The Buddha said, "The life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. For there is not any means by which those that have been born can avoid dying. After reaching old age, there is death. Of such a nature are living beings. As ripe fruits are early in danger of falling, so mortals, when born, are always in danger of death. As all earthen vessels made by the potter end in being broken, so is the life of mortals. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. All are subject to death. of those who overcome by death depart from life. A father cannot save his son, nor kinsmen their relations. Mark, while relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply, one by one mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. So the world is afflicted with death and decay. Therefore the wise do not grieve, knowing the terms of the world. Not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be the greater and his body will suffer. He will make himself sick and pale, yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation and complaint and grief. He who has drawn out the arrow has become composed will obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed. Summary of the Sermon at Benares. Gautama Buddha was a prince. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures. He returned after 4 years. He married a princess. They had a son. World sufferings make Gautama a beggar for enlightenment. Gautama Buddha had been shielded from the sufferings of the world. When he was 25, he saw a sick man. Then he saw an aged man, and then a funeral procession. Finally, he saw a monk begging for alms. These made him so sad that he himself became a beggar. Then he went out to seek spiritual knowledge. He gets spiritual knowledge and he wandered for 7 years. At the end, he sat down under a fig tree. He vowed to stay until spiritual knowledge came to him. He got it after 7 days. He named the tree as the tree of wisdom, the Bodhi tree. He began to teach. Soon he became known as the Buddha. Buddha's first sermon, and he preached his first sermon at Benares. It is the most holy of the places on the Ganges. The sermon has 10 important points. These are: first, Kissa Gautami had only one son. He died. She took the dead child to her neighbors to make him alive. She asked for medicine. The people called her mad woman. Next, Kissa met a man. He told her that he had no medicine, but he knew a physician who could give medicine for the same. Kissa Gautami asked him to tell the man. He told her to go to Sakyamuni, the Buddha. Kissa told Buddha to give medicine to cure the boy. Buddha told to bring him a handful of mustard seed. And he said it must be from a house where no one has died. Believing this, Kissa Gautami went from house to house. People gave her mustard seed. She asked if no one died in the house, and they told her not to remind them of their deepest grief. Kissa Gautami could not get the seed from such a house. At last she sat tired and hopeless at the wayside. Darkness soon fell. She saw the lights of the city. Soon the darkness of the night was elsewhere. She considered the fate of men. She thought that she was so foolish, so selfish in her grief. Death was common to all, yet there lay a path that led man to immortality if he surrendered all selfishness. Buddha told her that human life was brief and painful. No one could avoid dying. All those who were born were to die one day. Young and adult all have to die like the vessels of a potter. They break after being made. All depart from life. A father cannot save his son. All relatives lament deeply when the dead is taken like an ox for slaughter. So the world is affected by suffering due to death and decay. The wise do not grieve as they know the truth. No one will get peace of mind from weeping or from grieving. On the contrary, his pain will be greater. His body will suffer. The dead are not saved by expressing sorrow. He who is of the lamentation and grief shall have peace of mind. One who has overcome sorrow will be free from the sorrow and be blessed.